Hello, today I'm starting a new series on Jupiter through the houses. So I'm going to go through Jupiter's, because obviously it's the most benevolent of all planets. So I'm going to go through all the indications just so that we can learn a little bit more about it. And then we go through for the different ascendants. And so Jupiter is obviously Jiva Karaka, the very first thing, and that is the planet of vitality and life, basically. So it's the most benefic of all planets, and the ruler of the natural ninth and 12th house of the zodiac. So Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter. They're completely different there in their feeling. Jupiter in the ninth house will be more for pilgrimage, education, higher education, doctorates, master's degrees, justice, law, culture. It's a trinal house, and it's all those kind of Sagittarius, much more focused, much more preaching, religious, knowledgeable, and high wisdom. In Pisces, it's much more optimistic, much more letting go, much more to do with the vision of the bigger picture, making things very spiritual, and travel. Both of them actually has of travel, both ninth and 12th house. Ninth house is obviously more like pilgrimage, where you go and come back. So you might go either for religious reasons or for education when it's activated, and you will return home. And so let's have a look at the kind of things to do with that. It's obviously a planet of morals, courtesy, and devotion. And it's open-minded, spiritual. And Jupiter is also the significator of natural houses, second house, fifth, ninth and 11th house of the zodiac. So by that I mean that it rules house of family, wealth, values, opportunities, children, obviously, with fifth house and everything, luck, happiness, growth, education, travel, and knowledge. It's the significator of teachers and role models that we attract. People who guide us through life and help us to actually put us on our path, our dharma, and give us knowledge and higher knowledge. It's also the significator of children, which is our most creative part of a human being, and is obviously creations and being creative, and all of that is very massive part of human life, really. It's also like when we got a really good fifth house, all things to do with the fifth house are really magical to us. It's so creative, and it's so willing to be self-sacrificing and devotional towards our child. It's very romantic. It's really rules like the physical heart, like Leo, that kind of thing. So it's just pretty outstanding, really. And they are like our biggest blessings of life, and our commitments to them is highly vibrational in the biggest scheme of things. So the energy we put into them help us increase the strength of our fifth house. It's also the significator of husband material. So a woman can be, or a man can, attraction will be like Mars. Obviously Venus for heterosexuals, the more gay couples Mars is still the attraction. But Mars obviously what we'll be attracted to, but Jupiter will be the husband material. So it's very different when a woman chooses to set up home with somebody than somebody who is just like looking good, just like thinking, are they going to be reliable when I have be set up home and have children. So Jupiter will, a really good Jupiter in somebody's female's chart will indicate that they want to have a partner for life, so they can bring and support their child, be very committed to the family. Jupiter rules the northeast of properties, generally speaking, in Vastu, and it's the condition of the chart. It shows the optimism and happiness of the person. So whether or not somebody can look at their situation like glass half full or glass half empty, and that's how their approach to life is really. So, but the good thing is, obviously, even if you have got a difficult Jupiter in your chart, with transits, we always get, even if it's not a good planet for you, I think it's much more blissful when it's in transit. And also with different dashas, it kind of really helps to activate that that Jupiter for the better. Excuse me, they're just checking my internet. So obviously the planet of opportunities, wherever it goes in the chart, you have that premise there of opportunities and situations occurring that the Jupiter will help you achieve, so you can tap into that. Jupiter is friendly with the Sun, Moon, Mars and Ketu. It's enemies with Mercury and Venus, and neutral towards Saturn. It spends roughly about a year in any sign, but it does retrograde back too during that time. But generally speaking, it takes 12 years to go around your chart, so 12-year cycle. So when you have a Jupiter return, that is 12 years have gone by. And it's a sign that allows you to explore the indications of the house and gives you opportunities, with its transits. It's exalted in Cancer at 5 degrees, the home of family, early education, nurture and stability, and love of homeland. It's debilitated at 5 degrees of Capricorn, which is sign of strive, climbing the ladder, ambition, government structure, and wanting more and more. And Motrikona is Sagittarius, 0 to 10 degrees in Mula Nakshatra, where you get to the bottom of things, build yourself a really firm foundation, and then build on that. That's what really Jupiter is best at, really. Just like, it's not a credit card, it is to do with wealth, but it's not a credit card type of wealth. It's not like Rahu. It's a type of money that gives you pleasure. So it's not necessarily always like extravagant in that sense. It's very much like build really good foundations and then have the focus, and having focus for that because of Sagittarius. Jupiter is a planet that gives you the big picture, philosophy, travel, culture and luck, happiness and wisdom, religion and spiritualities and other realms, charity. And because it's exalted in the fourth house of the natural zodiac, charity begins at home and a homeland first, and that will make you really happy. And women, especially mothers who are mothering a child, nursing a child. In Sagittarius, as I said, is focused and righteous, preaching and committed to goal-oriented and religious. In Pisces, it's open-minded, big-hearted, creative, more forgiving, bigger picture, and more spiritual rather than religious. Okay, so wherever it's kind of wherever it sits in your chart, it kind of protects that house and protects 7 houses from it by aspect, but it's got special aspects, 5th and 9th house, so a trinal one as well. So 5th house is from it. You also include the house that's sitting in. So if it's in your 1st house, aspects the 5th, 7th and 9th house. Gets directional strength in the 1st house. It's obviously in the, you can imagine it's high consciousness and high awareness spirituality, happy-go-lucky, that kind of thing. It's amazing. It's also, when it's in good condition, it can be really open-minded and tolerant, forward-looking, forward-thinking, positive and optimistic. Makes a fantastic advisor. All of these things that I'm saying, if it's in good condition, helps to move you forward. It kind of rules bankers, financiers, economists, judges, lawyers, generals. What else can I say about it? Spiritual advisors, professors, teachers, those kind of jobs, and justice. And it's also obviously rules justice, law, morals, ethics, universal law, social justice, and also it can be very idealistic and moralistic as well, because it is, you'll find that no planet is 100% brilliant, really, so there's always things going on. It is planet of joy and expansion, so the transit of that can have similar effects. Expansion, particularly if it's in the first house or aspect in the first house, but definitely, it's a first house. So respect and tolerance, affluence is all the other things that you can say about it. It rules fat, liver, high cholesterol, and edema when you actually get water retention. It rules Thursdays, color yellow or mustard, and it also rules yellowy kind of diamonds and citron gems as well. Obviously it rules Thursdays. It's debilitated, we said, in Capricorn at 5 degrees, but it's also it's not happy in Mercury signs. Mercury and Jupiter together, because they're both planets of teaching, learning, I should say, really, because obviously Jupiter is planet of very much to do with learning and publishing, because of the 9th house. Mercury is very much like information. Mercury can be gossipy, and fast information. But whereas like Jupiter is more like wisdom and high knowledge, that kind of thing. So this is the reason why it feels a little bit nervous in those sort of, it can be a little bit like, because obviously it expands everything, and Mercury can be very sort of multi-talented. It can like give you too much of everything, so it can be a little bit exhausting. So that's why it creates problems when it's in Mercury and nakshatras, Mercury signs, being aspected with Mercury or conjunct with Mercury, because it's just like so much information, whereas like the focus goes out of Jupiter and becomes too much into everything. And obviously because it's a planet of judgment as well, so it can be a bit judgmental about those things. So I find that, like if you it almost creates problems with learning, actually. So like for example, Jupiter in Purva Bhadrapada can be like it finds it really difficult sometimes learning, but but it could be that it's much more of like a visual learner rather than theoretical, because it kind of overdoes things, and the person could be like constantly wanting to learn, and particularly in certain nakshatras and things like that, it can really give you that like, oh, I want to learn so much, but you don't really absorb the information. It's just about going through it, but not necessarily absorbing the information or application of the information. Obviously not friendly with Libra, because they're both planets benefics, but Jupiter is much more like discerning. It's kind of what it is actually. Jupiter is much more it's a little bit judgmental, whereas Venus is not judgmental. It's a teacher to everybody. It's not going to judge you in a sense that you think, oh, you come from a poor background, you come from, that kind of, your family's got money or anything like that, or maybe your family's religious or atheist. Whereas Jupiter can be a little bit more choosy about who they actually spend their time with. So you can definitely see that. Jupiter and Venus are quite an interesting one as well. So Jupiter, Venus, or Jupiter in Venus houses, it can give dissatisfaction as well, because there's always like, oh, I could, particularly in love, because Venus is planet of love. So with Venus, it can just get like, oh, it can be like, the person could be a really, really nice guy or nice lady, and they're just like, oh no, but they just did that wrong. They could be a little bit like that too. So yeah, it's interesting. So we need to like rein it in a sense. If Jupiter is in the fourth house as well, so it gives you luxurious homes and luxurious cars and things like that, because wherever it is, it's bigger than normal. That's definitely the focus. So these are the things to do with Jupiter. As I said, it's got directional strength in the first house, so it gives the person much more focus, a jovial personality, and fun to be with. I have an uncle of mine. I don't know his chart, but I can bet you bottom dollar that he has got Jupiter in the first house, because he's always struggled with his weight, and he is quite expansive. Midriff region, and he's just very fun to be with. He's just got that lovely, I wouldn't say, because sense of humor is much more to do with Mercury, but it's just the happiness, sharing, and whenever we used to go out, as a family and everything, we would stop more often than normal to eat or drink something, and he wants everybody to have fun. So that is very much Jupiter. And I think I did say, but it does rule, Jupiter rules Thursdays. So Jupiter, obviously, just wanted to say that we all get to have a go at Jupiter in the first house at some point, hopefully, if the dashas line up, Mahadasha's planetary periods occur. And definitely in transits too. So there's this. So, but also have a look at other Vargas or divisional charts. In Vedic astrology, there are plenty of them. And have a look and see what condition your Jupiter is in different Vargas. And obviously, if Jupiter, you're going through a Jupiter dasha or subdasha, but particularly if you're going to the main Mahadasha of Jupiter, you can have a look and see in different Vargas if it is in the ascendant of any of those, because they also get activated with that too. It rules 3 nakshatras, Purnavasu, which is Jupiter nakshatras are always between two signs. So it's between Gemini and the first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. So last 10 degrees of Gemini, 20 to 30 degrees, and first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. And then also the last 10 degrees of Libra, and the first 3 degrees 20 of Scorpio. So that's Libra and Scorpio. And then also rules last 10 degrees, and that nakshatra in between Libra and Scorpio is called Vishaka. And then we have also Purva Bhadrapada, which is the last 10 degrees, so 20 degrees to 30 degrees of Aquarius, and first 3 degrees 20 of Pisces. So these are the 3 nakshatras. So with the dasha, those 3 nakshatras will get activated. And so what else do I want to say? Yeah, so just remember that, so we all get a little bit of a go at, during those dashas. And also, just wanted to also say that everything that I'm saying is for a Jupiter that has got, I'm not considering any kind of conjunctions or aspects, just purely the house placements. Jupiter in the 10th house, this is obviously an angular house. It's a very strong position. And this is obviously, that this is where we pay off our karma to the world. This is also an indication of our work, our career and status too. And clearly when Jupiter is here, it's going to activate the, obviously right opposite it is 4th house. So normally the position of Jupiter is okay, but the actual aspects is where it gains most of the opportunities, if you like. And also the house opposite it is 4th house. So 4th house is your mum. 10th house will be a flavor of your father. and it kind of obviously makes you quite happy-hearted anyway, because Jupiter is a great benefic. And all of this is very much dependent on the position of Jupiter. And Jupiter, like for example, for Aries will be a really good planet, but for Taurus is not such a good planet. It's 8th house and 11th house ruler, so it's a bit more difficult. But generally speaking, you know, the aspects of it is always better than its position. So from there, it's obviously going to aspect your 4th house, and the trinal, the outer tricone is activated 2nd, 6th and 10th house. And wherever Jupiter is aspecting is creating opportunities. Even if it's not a good planet for you, in transit is creating all those opportunities for you. So you have obviously Jupiter is planet of respect, and clearly at work is going to be people are going to notice you. They're going to see you for the jovial person than you are, and your work is naturally going to be making you happy, and you're going to get that respect from others too. And it's going to give you like many talents, I guess, in a sense you could say, because it is kind of creating those opportunities within your 10th house that you might have more than one job, perhaps even. But anyway, so you could be a teacher, a wise person known at work, so people can come up to you even if it's just like a colleague comes to you for some counselling, some advice about something or other too. Obviously, clearly it's going to be very different for a Scorpio ascendant, for example. If Jupiter is a good planet for them, is a trinal, and also creates money for them too. Dhanastan, 2nd house. When it goes into the 10th house for them, it's going to be very, very different to like if like for a Taurus ascendant or Aries ascendant. For like Scorpio ascendant, Leo is their 10th house. So Jupiter, when it goes in there, it could be a politics, it could be a CEO, a general, it could be somebody who is into like genetics, expert, something like that, a colonel, a military person, a financier, because it rules 2nd and 5th house. So it could be completely different kind of jobs to somebody like who has Jupiter as the 8th and 11th lord, for example, for Taurus. So everything is quite different, and obviously we're talking about Jupiter with no aspects or conjunctions. So definitely the sign will make a big difference, and ascendants too. But obviously this person could be, again, as I said, depending on the sign, it could be a professor, a religious teacher, could be somebody who is an advisor, a counselor, those kind of job. It could also be somebody, obviously any form of education or educator will be very much to do with Jupiter. And it could be like a CEO of like a corporation, it being law or banking, jobs like that. It could also be, because it's actually aspecting your 2nd house, gives like a very happy, jovial family who've got really perhaps quite religious family. They could also be very traditional in the sense that they want to have like money and everything, savings, family savings, and family values are very important to them. And people would, generally speaking, will be quite be trusting of this family. They will be respectful of this family. They can obviously, depending on the house that's in and the how Jupiter is for you, they could have really good savings as well. So and also then it's also aspecting the 4th house. Oh, actually, because 2nd house speech too, so they could speak quite a lot, and they could be very gracious about what they say too. They could also be quite preaching because the nature of Jupiter. And 4th house could be and they could also eat a lot too, eat or drink a lot too, because obviously, it's whatever we put in our mouth is second house. So yeah, these people could love chatting. Fourth house is obviously the mother, so you can see the mother and the whole family could be quite nurturing, quite happy-go-lucky. The whole home environment is quite comfortable. It could be a luxurious home too, and as I said, they could be quite a respectful family, and everybody in the neighborhood will be like they feel comfortable. People feel comfortable in your environment, in your home environment, household. And it could, as I said, Jupiter is all to do with belief system and religion, spirituality. More normally in this kind of trichome will be more like a religious family. They would want to kind of keep those family values and religion going in the family, that kind of thing too. So they would want their background and their belief system and their kind of traditions going through their family. It also aspects the sixth house, so helps to overcome any enemies. Their eating habits could also cause them issues with health, and the possibility that the family can help you out of debt too. And this could also be like, what do you call it? They literally have got a nice way of actually gaining through, talking just through sort of wisdom and the way that they are with people and everything else. That could actually get them out of trouble with their enemies too. They can also be, obviously, sixth house could be anything to do with legal kind of jobs or medical jobs, depending on the sign. Normally I find Cancer and Pisces, or even signs such as, for example, Virgo or Aquarius, can be very much to do with medical field. But yeah, so they could be there could be a prosecutor, a lawyer, a judge, family debt mediator or mediator generally, school teacher, those kinds of jobs, governmental jobs too. But they can also be like an Ayurveda, it depends on the sign, Ayurveda practitioner too, a healer, those kind of things, depending, doctors, nurses, stuff like that can also be all part of that too. So this is what you can get with the Jupiter in the 10th house. Now we can have a quick look at their ascendants. For Aries ascendant, Jupiter rules your 9th and 12th house. When it's in the 10th house, Jupiter will be debilitated in Capricorn. And so this could be that you could actually go through periods where you find it actually difficult to get a job. And when you do, then, you could be that you've had to spend a lot of money in order to be able to get the job, get the education to get the job, or that you've had to go to a different country to find work. And definitely the jobs that you can have could be to do with teaching, being a professor, educator, advisor, some form of job like that. I would probably say more than anything else for these natives, Aries ascendant, the teachers, and they could also be working for some form of governmental job within a sort of structural place, because of the nature of Capricorn is very much like governmental sort of places such as schools, probation, that kind of thing. That kind of stuff can be. It could also be like a prison environment as well, because of the 12th house is prisons or hospitals too. But anyway, it'd be like a big institutional job that they could work for. For Taurus ascendant, Jupiter rules 8th and 11th house. When it's in the 10th house, Jupiter will be in Aquarius. So Aquarius is obviously a humanitarian jobs, working with the public, working to actually make people feel better about themselves. Could also be like a psychic healer, They could do massage therapy. They could also be like involved in things such as like big, because it's also Aquarius is big corporations to big organizations, so they could work for a big organization as well. And you know, they could also, as I said, they could gain quite well out of it, but their job could also give them some losses too. They could even do like, there could be something secret about their job. They could like be a mediator or clairvoyant, something like that. But yeah, or even an astrologer, really, that could definitely be the thing for them. But they could also be, as I said, they could be definitely some form of healer. It could also be some form of science as well, because parts of Aquarius is a bit scientific and technology, like for example Shadabisha, it can be like that too. For Gemini ascendant, Gemini, its 7th and 10th lord is so this will be like obviously it's Jupiter will be in own sign. For Gemini ascendant, Jupiter being in its own sign, it is very likely that they could be in some form of they could definitely be an educator. They could also be like work in, because it's a natural 12th house of zodiac, these people could be working in a laboratory. They could be doctors, because it's also looking at Virgo. Doctors, nurses, could be prison officers, work in prisons, work in some form of charity work, that kind of thing. And they could obviously, because 7th house is also going away, you know, with work, they could do that. So yeah, that form of job for sure. For Cancer ascendant, this is 6th and 9th house ruler. When it comes in the 10th house, it obviously creates for them will be 10th house will be Aries. So Aries, this obviously slightly spoils because it rules the 6th house. It could be like a bit difficult, you know. So, but nonetheless, it is a Raj Yoga with a bit of difficulties, a bit Upachaya house, the 6th house. So what can happen with these people? They could be working in the military because the nature of Aries. They could be working to do with transportation, because of the first part of Aries is Ashwini. So it could be like forms of transport, military jobs. They could be like a colonel. It could be somebody who is also a doctor, because Bharani, it could be gynecologists, things like that. It could also be, if it's in Kritika, there could be somebody who's a critiquing like restaurants, or critiquing travel, that sort of thing. Depending on where it falls. But yeah, that's kind of they can be quite independent workers too, because of Aries. Then we have Leo ascendant. For Leo ascendant, is 5th and 8th house ruler. Jupiter will be in the 10th house, which is Taurus. So Jupiter for them could be somebody who is working in the banking, in education. 5th house is education. 8th house is could be like taxation, things like that. So they could be working with either of them, or they could have breaks in their job. They could do like secret taxation, secret investments for people, things to do with like wills and jobs like that, really. So it could also be that they work, because Taurus is food, and so it could be food for children. It's also travel and beauty and things like that. So it could also be artistic jobs, such as like filming, photographic work. It could be like, particularly if it's in Kritika, they could be very good at editing like film, things like that. So yeah, it could be fashion even. that kind of thing could be because of the nature of Taurus, and also because fifth house could also be like partying and things like that. So it could be quite creative job as well. But there will be ups and downs in the job because of the nature of the eighth house. For Virgo ascendant, Jupiter rules for them fourth and seventh house. When he goes into the 10th house, Jupiter will be in Gemini. So this will be a Jupiter who it could be like they develop house, land, properties. They could they could also do them abroad because seventh house is far away places too. And they could also do they could work with their partner. They could meet their partner through work, that kind of stuff. But it could also be like, for example, third house is Gemini is the third house of natural zodiac, so they could actually be like a professor in teachings and teach people skill sets, teach people about kind of particularly in art, right? It could be like jobs that are to do with technology, graphic design, things like that. They could be like an architect as well, for that kind of job. Jobs definitely can be seen. For Libra ascendant, Jupiter in the 10th house, Jupiter will be exalted in Cancer, which is lovely setup. This will be a third and sixth house ruler in the 10th house. So this will be somebody who's probably worked for themselves. They have put a lot of effort into their job, and that has really paid off. This could definitely be a job in teaching skill sets, being a teacher, being like an educator, working in schools, working in university, working even like this could very much be to do with being a nurse, being midwifery, those sort of jobs for sure. And so for I think we've already mentioned Scorpio. For Scorpios and the second and fifth house ruler in the 10th house, wonderful placement. It's also Raj Yoga, and it's a really nice setting. Good placement. Jupiter likes being in Leo as well. So this will be probably an ambassador, a politician, a diplomat. It could be somebody who was an educator, who's an investor, speculative investments, a family business, somebody who's highly respected as a general or colonel in the army. Very nice placement. For Sagittarius, this will be Jupiter, which is first and fourth house ruler in the 10th house, will be in Virgo. It's aspect in the fourth house as well, so it's actually really kind of make the person really happy, protecting the fourth house. So they could again be like an architect here, particularly but if he falls in Chitra, which is the latter part of this Virgo. And if it is in Hasta, it could be somebody who's a healer, make things with hands. So it could be a carpenter. Jupiter rules wood, make houses, develop properties, develop land, maybe even sell cars, but the attention to detail will be amazing. They could be fantastic at home decorating, and it just literally, it really blesses the fourth house. So you could have a house abroad because the fourth house ends up being like in the natural 12th sign of the zodiac, so it's amazing. For Capricorn ascendant, Jupiter rules 3rd and 12th house, so it's not really necessarily good placement. However, this is a Jupiter that is in the 10th house for Capricorn ascendant, will be Jupiter in Libra. So from there, Jupiter is it can be involved in could be a speaker, could be a teacher, third house stuff. So it could be somebody who is in the arts, works behind the scenes, maybe in a theatre, somebody who is that deals with export to import, that kind of thing. Definitely could be somebody who's creative, somebody who's got like a very, very good way of inspiring people, and traveling with it, you know, going abroad, going to far distance lands and do all these amazing talks. Could be somebody who's a preacher who goes into like ashrams and temples, that kind of thing. Then for Aquarius ascendant, Jupiter is 2nd and 11th house, so it actually makes money. When it goes into the 10th house, Jupiter will be in friendly sign in Scorpio, so that's pretty good. It creates wonderful dhan yoga for them. So this could be definitely somebody who's in banking, in finance, economist, somebody who deals with big money, big wealth. Yeah, and some of it will be secretive stuff, offshore money, these people who fund hedge funds, things like that, and possibly not even better than crypto stuff, you know, the kind of stuff that's like blockchain, and the money's kind of well looked after, that kind of thing, and they gain through their friends. Their friends will show them the ways, or they got wealthy friends who help them, and they help their wealthy friends, they help their family, they can save money really well. Yeah, because from there Jupiter will be aspecting the 2nd house, so they not only they gain money, they can also save it, and the family will benefit from that too. Jupiter in the 10th house for Pisces ascendant will be Jupiter, because it rules 1st and 10th house, so it's in own sign in Sagittarius. Now this also creates a really nice Raj and Dhan yoga too, so it's pretty amazing. So from there, you know, Jupiter is going to be like more religious Jupiter. This is a professor, a theology teacher, somebody who is a priest, a cardinal, something like that. They educators, travelers, traveling, you know, for their work, and they could also publish books. Yeah, they're very high status, highly preaching job as well, so they'll be quite successful in that. Okay, that's it. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.